Hello, my name is Ian, and Phil and I would like to welcome you to our presentation. Today, we'll be taking a brief look at the customer service module, which is an add-on to the Priority ERP system. Before we start, there are a couple of points to mention. Firstly, there are brochures to view and download using the webinar menu. There will be a Q&A session at the end of the webinar. Either type your question directly, or if you prefer to speak, raise your hand and you'll be unmuted to ask a question. Please fill out the survey that will be sent out after the webinar, such that we know how to improve for next time. And finally, please visit our webinar site to view previous webinars, upcoming webinars, and what you would like to see in future presentations. The address is webinar.medatechuk.com. Okay, let's move on, starting with the Priority ERP system. Priority ERP is a comprehensive, integrated business management solution. It is used daily in over 8,000 organizations across 40 countries. Surpassing the 1,500th cloud customer this year, there are now 300,000 satisfied Priority users worldwide. Every day, 18 million transactions are carried out using Priority. The core system offers a wide breadth of functionality in its own right, and this can be further extended and enhanced with the addition of specific functional modules. As you can see, there are a number of additional modules such as project management, warehouse management, and human resources. However, our focus today is on customer service. The customer service module helps us manage all aspects of communication with the customer, from call logging and service desk through resource scheduling and client feedback. The entire process can be managed using this module. When the service call is logged, it can be categorized using a number of warranty codes and call statuses. Other definitions, such as malfunction, resolution, billing exemptions, and so on, may also be set. Once logged, the service team is alerted and the resources can be allocated using the integrated diary. If received via email, the Outlook integration means that the information can automatically be recorded in Priority's tasks form and linked to the relevant customer. For manufacturers, the serial number is automatically brought through the shipping delivery process into the customer services module. Once delivered, products can be traced with regard to any servicing that's been carried out and any spare parts that have been applied to it. The Internet interface allows the client to enter service call directly or via a call desk. Seamless integration means that all the information is immediately available to the service personnel, including navigation to any relevant previous cases. In order to monitor the effectiveness of client support, customer feedback can be recorded using the customer survey functionality. Customer surveys can be generated in the system, used for telephone, written, or web-based information gathering. The survey responses can be collated and filtered for use in standard reports, executive dashboards, and statistical analysis. Data gathered during the duration of the service calls, together with feedback from any customer surveys, can be used to indicate any potential problem areas with specific products or services. Statistical analysis can also be used to show not only call log data, but average product performance in the field. Finally, warranties and ongoing service contracts, together with the appropriate billing information, is managed within the system. Okay, that's enough of the theory. I'd now like to hand over to Phil to take a look at the module itself.
Thank you, Ian. First of all, let me just change the screen over so that we can look at Priority itself. Okay. As Ian said, this is just a brief overview of the customer service module. This series of webinars that we're doing is intended to be short and sharp and quick, so that we're not taking up too much of your day, but hopefully it's useful information for you to understand the sort of functionality that there is in Priority. Now, the customer service module, as Ian has suggested, is very much geared towards the types of organization who either manufacture or distribute products usually fairly high value products that require servicing out in the field and are subject to service calls coming in from the field. It's not to be confused with customer relationship management, which I know a lot of systems call their CRM systems customer service. CRM clearly is the early part of the sales process. This is very much to do with after sales and getting the products serviced whilst they're in the field. Ian mentioned there were several parts to the customer service module. There is functionality with regards to the management of serial numbered parts, service contracts, the management of service calls, and also service quality, so with regard to customer surveys. I won't be looking at customer surveys today, but I shall be briefly looking at the other aspects I've just mentioned. Okay, let's first of all go and jump into the catalogue of parts with serial numbers. Very much like the part catalogue we all know and love. However, this is concentrating purely on those items only that have serial numbers. So if we look at a list of items here, you can see we've got the same part number here, but a different entry for each of the individual serial numbers that are identified on the system. Now, quite a few of these are blank in the field called customer number, which means that they are still here, they are still in stock. Excuse me. But where there is a customer number, this means that the item has been shipped to that customer, and so this is an obvious and very clear indication that these items are in the field. Those items also have a history, of course. In fact, all of these serial numbered items have a history. So if I look at one of these particular items specifically, go down to the first subform, we can see we've got an audit trail for the item. And here we can see two things happen to this item. One is we received them into stock, and secondly, it was then used on a service call. Okay, so this particular item, if I come back up to the top level, we can see the serial number of ending in 03. In actual fact, on the audit trail, you can see it was used in a service call for another item of serial number ending in 12. Okay. We can actually go and look at that service call as well. So there's the service call number, click on the little icon at the side, and this identifies all of the dealings with regard to that service call. And we can see from the subform down here that the pressure sensor with the serial number 3 was actually added to that item and sent back out to the customer. Okay. So within here, there's also lots of other information as well. So service contracts for items, service calls for a particular serial number, history of the components within it, what malfunctions, etc., etc. And so consequently, the traceability throughout the whole of Priority, which Priority is quite famous for, both for lot numbers and with serial numbers, is clearly self-evident here. Okay, coming back to the home page, we'll have a little look at service contracts now. So if I open up a service contract, call back the service contracts I've got, and then let's have a look at this one here. So within the service contract, there's lots of data available. Whenever you open a service contract, then clearly there is an effect date and an expiry date that are important, and also you've got renewal options on how many times you can renew it, how many years you can renew the service contract for. Various references within here to do with service terms, etc., but also the contract source. So in other words, where did this item come from that is now subject to the service contract? If it's one of your own products, then clearly it may well be part of a shipment, and here we've got a customer shipment number. If I wanted to, I could again go and jump to that customer service, or it could have been from a sales invoice number, previous contract, a project, etc., etc. There are also terms within the service contract. So the price of the service contract, so what you're going to charge your customer for providing them with this contract, and also things like payment frequency, payment terms, etc., etc. Now, if we go down to the first subform down here, we can see the items that are actually within this contract. So we can see those items that we have shipped to the customer that are subject to this contract, and clearly part of the warranties and also part of the servicing regime that will be part of this contract. And we've got quantities, we've got the unit prices here. These are the prices that the items were actually sold for originally, and then further across we can see how we're actually going to charge them. We can either do it on a pro rate mechanism. So here, this first item here, we're actually charging them annually 60% of the original charge, or you can do it via a flat rate charge per year. And clearly these costs then go up to the top level. There are, of course, lots of ways of invoicing these. You can have them according to payment installments, but equally we got the field up here at the top for payment frequency. At the top level, you've got the ability to calculate installments, either for this month or for the next month, etc. Let's just open that up a little bit so we can see those direct activations a bit better. And as well as that, you've also got other additions that you can add to the service contract, other cost items that you need to charge the customer. For each individual service contract, chances are there are going to be some service calls that are linked to it. Now, the idea in most circumstances of a service contract is that you charge annually or quarterly or monthly or whatever for your service contract, which means that you then provide the customer with some form of servicing, either free parts, free labour, or both. And so consequently, they are paying up front for the benefit of the service contract rather than having to pay ad hoc bills throughout the year whenever their equipment fails or needs servicing. So here we've got some service call numbers, and it's at this point that I can then jump to the service call, and we can have a look and see what the service call side of the customer service module looks like. So here we've got a service call clearly linked with this customer with that particular service contract that we were looking at. So whenever you open a service call, and again this could come directly from the internet, it could come via a call center, it could come via email. It's up to you how you wish to take in service calls from your customer base. In this particular case, we haven't identified a serialized number part, but there is a part number that's identified with this. There's a service call number on the left, and in the middle we've got the contract that this is linked to, the one we were looking at before. And of course, with the contract and also with the service call, there are statuses which all obey the business process management flowcharts that are inherent throughout the whole of Priority. So having identified what the part is that is the subject of the service call, then we can, there are various things that come through, some of them automatically. So for instance, we've got some service terms. So how is the customer actually paying for this service call? Is it prepayment according to the service contract, or is it by billable services that are identified within the service call? Equally, we've also got a servicing package. Now this is very much for preventative maintenance, regular maintenance, where if you think about taking your car for the MOT or an annual service, then the garage will be ready when you take your car in for a service with a bunch of parts that are required for that servicing. So for instance, there will be an oil filter, an air filter, some spark plugs, some plug leads, some oil, etc., etc. So that can be identified as being the service package, and I can jump to see what makes up this particular service package. We can see there's a part number on the system, which is the assembly which makes up all of those items. Again, I can now jump to the part catalogue, and we can see all of the items that make up that particular kit, which is the servicing package. Now, all of these obviously may well come through with costs of the individual items, or you may cost the whole package as a whole. Okay, further down we have some indication of what exactly this service call is all about. First of all, we have the customer's problem, and these are all drop-down fields. So here we can see what is the item, or what is the problem that the customer has got, and this is obviously categorized, which is very good for reporting. And but the trouble is, of course, this is the symptom. This is what the customer thinks is the problem. This may not, of course, be the actual problem. So we also need a field down here for malfunction, which is what our technician or engineer has identified actually is the problem and needs to be fixed. And further down here, we also have the resolution, again, entered by the engineer or technician who has identified the action that he has taken in order to fix the problem that the customer has got with this piece of equipment. Now, those definitions, of course, may not be completely explicit. There may, of course, be lots of other information, and so there are some subforms down here, ordinary text forms, that allows the engineer or technician to be able to identify, first of all, more detail about the malfunction and more description of the repair that actually took place. Now, one thing that's important to remember here is that we're looking at this on a laptop screen. All of this functionality is available as part of our Priority Mobile, so we can actually give handheld devices, PDAs, tablets, etc., to engineers and technicians as they go out, and they can access all of this information via the internet, and if necessary, offline as well. Okay, coming back up to the top level, it's important to remember with service calls that even though most of the date fields within Priority just show the date, within the customer service module it's important to have the time as well. So all of the date fields have both date and time. It's very important that if a customer phones up at 8:30 in the morning, you don't wait until 4:30 in the afternoon before you do anything about it. So times are very important in anything to do with customer service. So you can see start times, end times, response times, idle times, etc. And these obviously are very easily reported upon, and there are plenty of reports in Priority to report on all of these. Various other references and obviously link with any projects that are required. Any financial data that is accrued throughout this service call will come through to here. And importantly as well, we have a scheduling sheet where we can actually identify when the service call is first logged, who is going to be the technician or the technicians, because it may require more than one person, who are going to be identified and work on this service call, and the dates and the times that they're going to be working upon it. Now this, of course, always feeds through to the calendars within Priority. So again, we can just go and jump to the calendar on the system, and we can see here that our technician Danny has got a number of different service calls that he's going to be working on throughout next week. Of course, this is the normal functionality within Priority, the drag and drop functionality. So we can take any one of these and we can say, okay, well, we'll actually move it to a different day because we've got a clash, or we need Danny to do something else that day. Okay. Once our technician is on site, then we have the capability of giving him access to the system so he can do a couple of things. First of all, he can identify the parts that he is going to be actually using in the service call. And you see this has been pre-populated already by some of the items that were, or in fact all of the items that were identified in the servicing package. And they've all come up with planned quantities. Okay, well, that's not necessarily quantities that are actually being used, because here we have actual quantities. We also have the warehouse balance. This warehouse balance is, in this scenario, normally the back of the engineer's van. So the system always knows with regard to what spares and what stock is available in each of the individual van stocks of all of your service personnel. So you can identify the actual quantities of these items that have been fitted by the engineer, and the engineer will do that in real time. As well as that, you also identify the amount of time that he has spent on the service call. Clearly you've got start times, end times, or you can just identify the actual number of hours. With all of these items as well, you can also come across to the right and identify whether these items are billable or not. In this particular case, this item is identified as being billable. It's not part of the service contract. However, that is normally dictated by the terms of the contract, so the individual engineer does not need to worry about that. The system will automatically set that anyway. And consequently, when it comes to the invoicing, either at the end of the week or the end of the month or whenever it is, then the system will automatically take any items off any closed service calls and ongoing contracts and invoice the customer accordingly. Okay, so as well as that, as with most of the other aspects of priority, you've also got tasks for this particular transaction. You've also got attachments as well, so you might have some service instructions, for instance, here, and again we've got a PDF which identifies those. Any electronic document, of course, can be linked with any part of the priority system. Okay, so that's the main pieces of functionality. Clearly there is a lot more that we could go into, but also there is some reporting as well. I'm not going to go into a lot of the reporting, but it's probably worth highlighting just a couple of useful reports. The first one is contracts nearing expiry. One of the things about support contracts is that you set them up at the beginning of the year, and if they all happen at different times of the year for all of your different customers, then the chances are by the time they come to renewal, if they don't remind you, you will probably forget. So this is a very useful report that can be on the scheduler. So every week, every month, or whatever, it can highlight those contracts that are coming towards the end of their expiry, and then you can speak with your customer, make sure they're happy to renew the contract, etc., etc. Of all the modules within Priority, you'll find that actually this is one of the greater revenue-generating modules, purely and simply because it's allowing you to speak with your customer and convince them that they need service contracts, which obviously is very good revenue for you. Now, with any service contract, you will be providing services as part of that contract. At the beginning of the year, you don't know how many of those services, how many of those parts you will be providing, and so it's useful to know on an ongoing basis whether those contracts are being profitable for you or not. So just because your customer is paying you, let's say, £500 at the beginning of the year, you may end up by the end of the year expending a lot more than £500 on free services, free parts, etc. And so you need to know whether that information, whether these contracts are being profitable for you or not. Now, there's a number of reports. There's a summary report. There's also detailed reports as well. And what we can do, this is just a very quick example. So you can see on here, we've got a number of contracts. You can see that we've got labour that's been provided at no charge, parts that have been provided at no charge, because they are part of the terms of the contract, and so obviously they will diminish the amount of profit that you will get out of that service contract. And it's a very useful report to allow you at the end of each contract to make an assessment of whether you want to continue this contract at its current rate, or whether you want to alter it and offer it at a different rate to your customers. Okay, so that's pretty well what I wanted to show today. I think we're pretty well on time for a change. If there are any questions, if anyone would either like to raise their hands or type any questions into the webinar interface, then please feel free. Okay, not a lot of reaction at the moment, so looks like either I've sent everybody to sleep or they're well satisfied with what they've seen. Okay. Okay, well, just to remind everybody that there are handouts in the webinar for people to download if they wish. There's information on our website as well with regard to webinars and what webinars we've had in the past. You can download recordings of them and what webinars are going to be coming up in the future. Okay. I think just thank you for your attention today and hopefully see you on future webinars. Thank you very much.
Thank you.